The 1991 war in the Persian Gulf demonstrated the effectiveness of battlefield preparation. The air war over Iraq was spectacular. However, covert actions by small, highly trained groups of fighting men have achieved equally impressive results. Just such a group of men played a key role in the liberation of Kuwait. The Navy's Sea, Air, and Land Teams, or SEALs, were instrumental in intelligence gathering, reconnaissance, combat search and rescue, and commerce interdiction. The evolution of these professional warriors can be traced to World War II. On November 20th, 1942, the United States became painfully aware of the need for combat swimmers. During the amphibious assault of the Japanese-held island of Tarawa, Navy landing craft were forced to stop by a submerged reef more than a mile from shore. The Marines were forced to wade hundreds of yards to the beach. Submerged holes became as deadly as the lethal enemy fire to the heavily laden troops. Hundreds drowned. Navy combat demolition units were formed to provide detailed pre-invasion reconnaissance. Known to their peers as web-footed warriors, these forerunners of today's SEALs swam into the beaches armed only with a slate, lead line, and a knife. A lead line was a measuring device consisting of a lead weight on a nylon cord marked in 1-foot increments. It was used to detect underwater reefs or man-made obstacles. The frogmen then returned to destroy the obstructions just before the first wave of landing craft approached. These Navy Combat Demolition Units, or NCDU teams, saw extensive action during the final stages of World War II, as the United States undertook the arduous task of routing the Japanese from numerous Pacific islands. The barriers of steel that the Germans had erected on the Omaha and Utah beaches were the greatest challenge the NCDU teams faced during World War II. The divers had planted explosives on the iron obstacles in preparation for the Normandy invasion. However, many Allied troops were using the barricades as cover from the withering German fire as they fought through the surf. Fortunately, in 4 places, the infantrymen heeded the purple warning flags placed by the frogmen, and the barriers were destroyed with tremendous explosions. The success during the Normandy invasion was purchased at high cost. 41% of the men in the NCDU teams were killed. The Korean conflict brought a new identity and an expanded mission to the Navy Combat Demolition Units. The units became known as Underwater Demolition Teams. The old NCDU's operational limits extended from a depth of 3½ fathoms at sea, or 21 feet, to the high water mark on the beach. The UDTs enjoyed a new domain, including targets such as railroad trestles, rail lines, and tunnels located close to shore. In January of 1962, President John F. Kennedy created the Navy SEALs in response to the growing threat of modern guerrilla warfare.
This is another type of warfare, new in its intensity, ancient in its origin, war by guerrillas, subversives, insurgents, assassins, war by ambush instead of by combat, by infiltration instead of aggression, seeking victory by eroding and exhausting the enemy instead of engaging him. It is a form of warfare uniquely adapted to what has been strangely called wars of liberation, to undermine the efforts of new and poor countries to maintain the freedom that they have finally achieved. It preys on economic unrest and ethnic conflicts. It requires, in those situations where we must counter it, and these are the kinds of challenges that will be before us in the next decade, if freedom is to be saved, a whole new kind of strategy, a wholly different kind of force, and therefore a new and wholly different kind of military training.
2 teams were formed, SEAL Team 1, based at Coronado, California, and SEAL Team 2 at Little Creek, Virginia. These units were manned by former UDT members and assigned new duties in addition to their traditional roles on the beaches and in harbors. The new SEALs would infiltrate and exfiltrate agents, conduct reconnaissance, and gather intelligence. The SEALs would also undertake counterinsurgency actions, including medical aid, civil engineering, and basic education of indigenous populations. The educational role of the teams would also extend to other members of the United States Armed Forces and their allies. The Vietnam War began a new chapter in the SEAL story. The dense jungle, mangrove swamps, and the cunning Viet Cong defined a new dimension in SEAL warfare. SEAL missions were now defined by objectives, not restricted by terrain. The Viet Cong attempted to control river traffic with concealed bunkers, and squads of SEALs often penetrated the dense jungle to carry out demolition raids against these fortifications. The stealthy tactics of the SEAL teams made them ideal for penetrating deep into enemy territory to interdict troop movements and supply lines.
If you don't have the element of surprise, you're lost. You won't come out of the mission. You have to have the element of surprise all the time. As soon as you're compromised, as soon as they know you're there, you're in trouble, and you have to be on the way out. If you've got a long way to go, in a particularly hostile area, you won't make it out.